Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Carlton. Welcome to Awesome Day of FileMaker Training. Today's live stream is a conversation that I had with, was it Amy? Angie. The conversation, we had one person who wants to talk about bombs, and it's kind of a big topic, so that we're going to save that. Me and Margaret are doing some planning around that. We have to do, it'll be like multiple days. It's not so much about bombs, it's about teaching you something that from their perspective that will help them, but it also helps educate everyone else about the mechanical scripting. Once again, we're back to this, the idea, this is what happened yesterday, right? We were talking about this with Margaret. But the idea is that you can articulate a test to make sure that you're ready to write a script is that you have a coworker calls you with a problem and you can articulate that via voice, like a regular cell phone or old time phone without any visuals, without screen sharing. You can verbally walk them through the process of completing the task. If you can do that, that is the test that tells me or you should use as a benchmark to say that you're ready to write a script. If someone says, I want a report that does this and this and this, and you can't walk someone through it verbally, you're not ready to write the script. Very, very important concept. So the question that came up yesterday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot over here, and if I drop off for some reason, I want to welcome everyone who's being very patient with us. Butterflies and bugs. Hey, butterflies and bugs, please ask questions. Butterflies and bugs, along with some of you have like the one gentleman I talked to today has he's been messing around with FileMaker for years, but doing serious development for the last couple of years and really getting into the relationships deeply over the last 6 months. That's the perfect person I want to talk to help you out. And Butterflies and Bugs, I think, is in this same range of skill set. So today, here is the situation. So let's talk about the problem first, and then let's walk through it. So Margaret, are you ready to are you stabilized over there, Margaret? Are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the air. I'm going to fire up this version of FileMaker, which I just tweaked the icon to make it green so everyone would be cool. It's different than everyone else. I have no idea why it would be green. You'll just have to go with that. I'm going to make this area show for now. I'm going to open up a copy of Starting Point. This is the one that we've been kind of beating on and messing with. And pieces that we're building here are going to go into X2. I'm going to try to work on that this afternoon. Every day a fire breaks out and I have to jump on that and I can't quite finish what I'm doing. So we can all see the screen here. This is Starting Point. So here is what the person says. What was her name? Was it Angie? Margaret, yesterday? Is that who that
was? It was Angie. Yeah, she's in Twitch chat. So.
Oh, she is. Okay, great. So Angie says, and she probably said something different, but I'm going to take a little bit of artistic license with this and kind of dumb it down so it's useful for everyone, if that makes sense. So, but you will see the value in here. So Angie says, I have a invoice. Now, if we go to an invoice, understand what invoices really are. If you go to an invoice, it's this. In fact, I'm probably going to end up coming up with another sample file because this one's kind of a little interesting because a typical invoice, if we go to it and we look at it, this has got this detail list master portal over here, master detail. I'm not allowed to say master once again. That's Claris. And actually more Apple. So I'm going to hit open here on this. This is a printout of what the invoice looks like. So the invoice, a typical invoice from anyone else on the planet. I got one the other day for the helicopter. It was like, right? So invoice information at the top, who is going to, and the line items. This is nearly identical to an estimate. This is also nearly identical to a corporate purchase order, right? Corporate purchase order is an order to buy stuff. In fact, it's almost nearly identical, loosely, to a requisition. So a requisition is how things start. Okay, I want to buy some rubber duckies or something, blue rubber duckies. I don't have enough rubber duckies on my desk. I want some more rubber duckies. Okay, cool. They write up the requisition. The one part of the company gets the requisition, that's the purchasing department, and they go, yeah, you're authorized for 5 rubber duckies. You have money in the budget. So then they issue a purchase order. The purchase order goes to the customer or the vendor, and then they fulfill it and send them an invoice back. Purchase orders, when I say purchase orders, can be 2 different ways of purchase orders, where you're issuing a purchase order to buy something or a purchase order that's inbound, one that you receive. At the end of the day, this is all, we're talking from a mechanical standpoint, the same thing. It's a parent record here with line items down here. They're all the same for the most part, unless your company is super special. And so Angie was talking about requisitions. It doesn't matter that it's requisition, it could be anything. So we're going to use the idea today that I'm going to redescribe this in terms of invoices because the problem, how we solve it is identical and it make more sense to everyone. She says that, well, people come into the database and they're doing stuff. And what they have is a workflow process. So the workflow is that someone, they're on the home screen and then they go to the invoice and they say, I'm going to create a new invoice and I need rubber ducky, right? And they want 5 rubber duckies. So let's just pretend this is an invoice or a requisition. It doesn't matter. And I am assign contact. I can do that. I'm just going to say, I can put my name in here. I can say I'm Daryl Abercrombie. There's no R in there. Whatever. Close enough. Daryl's here. Okay. And the Daryl's down here and he's typing like in the rubber ducky should come with whipped cream. I don't know what you're going to do with rubber ducky and whipped cream. It sounds kind of questionable, but we have whip cream. Okay. We have whipped cream. And then Daryl's typing and it has to have this and it has to have this and that's this. And then Daryl at the end of the process on this layout, somewhere down here at the bottom is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and 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 take this. I'm just going to arbitrarily build this for you. So you all, y'all understand what I'm doing here. So I'm building a button. The button is spinning. The button is going to say submit to purchasing. Okay. And it's going to run some script or something. Okay. So that's the button. Okay. Here it is. So it's right here and it should be probably, if I go over here, solid color should probably be like blue. And the text color should be, where's the text color? Right here. Put the text color like white. So it looks like a button, right? We got this radius corners and I'll put some radius corners on it so it looks nice and round and buttony, okay? So the workflow process is that Daryl came here, he's doing it. When he's done, he presses a button, which sets some flags and basically maybe sends an alert to the accounting department or other people at the company that this record is done. Okay, that's how the workflow is supposed to work. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that people will, whenever you create a process, you need to expect that they can't find the process, don't understand the process, or they're doing the process and they get bored or distracted by shiny things and they walk away. And so Angie's going, well, they go home, they forget, they go on vacation, they get distracted by shiny things, they're watching YouTube videos. Whatever happens at the company, they don't finish it. So the accounting department considers this kind of incomplete because no one submitted it and really they don't know when it's done, right? Clearly, if it's partly done here and you got a partial explanation of the whipped cream they need, but there's not really any detail in here, the other department can't really submit it for them. So here's the problem. So there's 2 issues here that come into this, 2 issues. One is there's a workflow and the problem that Angie sees in the status on these as she goes to a list view is she sees a bunch of these that are in progress or not complete yet or not finished yet. The problem is they're kind of orphaned in here. And my guess is that if the person did half of it, comes back 3 days later, doesn't really remember where they were at, they come in here, they probably can't find it because, users are users. And so because they can't find it, and so where's there's the button right here. They can't find it. I can't find it. Then they're just going to start a new one. And maybe they finish that one, or maybe they have 2 or 3 orphaned ones before they get to the submit. And because once they submit one, they don't know that they orphaned other ones, right? So there's this whole idea of 2 things. One is the person repeating their work unnecessarily. And 2, junking up the screen for Angie's group to look at this thing, if that makes sense. And so so how do you manage that? So we're going to talk about the easy part first, the reasonably easy part first. So, and then I'm going to jump into the new thing for us today. So we've discussed and we described the problem, okay? One thing that comes up is that clearly it's not final yet. This one is final, but if we went back to the new one that Daryl created, it's preliminary. So The question is the people seeing the incomplete requisitions or invoices, are they being bothered by the fact that those incomplete ones are in there? Well, clearly she sent me an email and said, yeah, this is a problem, so somehow it's an issue. It's only an issue if they see it. So one way of dealing with this is to make sure that when they come into the screen or they go to a list view, we only show that we force a find on the screen. When they go to the screen, we only show them not the preliminaries one. We omit the preliminaries, right? We search for these, or we tell it to omit the preliminary, however you want to do that. So those records don't show up. However, some people might not like that. And so the idea comes in that this is really kind of a transactional situation, right? Like people are thinking, it's a transaction. Kinda. The way that the transactions work in FileMaker is that they are designed to, the transaction begins and ends with a script. Okay. It begins and ends with a script, notwithstanding the on window transaction, which is an audit logging thing. They named it transaction, should be called on audit log or something like that. Anyway, so there's no built-in FileMaker system that does transaction-y kind of stuff based upon a user being forcibly disconnected. So two ways of handling this. One, what we're going to do today is script it so the person comes back to the one they were at. So the title of today's session is how to save forward progress and come back to where you were. Okay, basically. That's what we're going to do momentarily. However, it's worth pointing out, and Margaret, I'm going to come to questions here in about 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. It's worth pointing out that you could have them just do incomplete ones, assuming you didn't want to solve for that problem. And you could omit them from your screen so you don't see them, or you could have a duplicate set of a table called invoice preliminary, an invoice line item preliminary, right? Makes sense? And so you put the data in that screen, and when you hit submit here, then a bunch of you were in the video the other day where we discussed writing a script that would move a record from an estimate to an invoice. We did all that. It was a fantastic video. In fact, the BOM person hadn't seen that video, so we sent him the video so he could see it. So if we put it in a staging table, invoices preliminary table, and an invoice line items preliminary table, and you complete it, then you would hit the submit or complete button somehow, and then it would take it and it would run the script that we wrote the other day in the video. Margaret can post that for all of you here, where we transfer it from the invoices preliminary to the invoices final, or from a requisition preliminary to a requisition final. So that is one way of solving this, so you don't have to see the dead carcasses of incomplete records. Does that make sense? So Angie goes, I told this to Angie, she goes, that's not what I was really looking for, which is great. I don't mind. I was hoping I want to make sure she gets value out of this. So she goes, well, it'd be better if they would just come back and complete the record. And so that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to script that. Now, before I dive into that, so if they complete it, then when they come back in, I still think there'll be some orphaned records, right? Because you'll have someone who forgets that they need rubber duckies, or they're no longer, by Monday, they don't care about rubber duckies anymore. And so you're still going to have orphans that you have to process, but there might be fewer of the orphaned invoices that are never fully completed, right? So Margaret, questions?
Now this is an interesting problem because I feel like a lot of stuff gets added to FileMaker that is purely to deal with customers or end users who are doing things that you can't account for.
That's exactly correct. So what we have is the invoice here. I'm using starting point. The technique we're going to use today will be nearly identical. I'm going to make myself slightly less awesome, Richard. So let's talk about this. So before I can tell my coworker over the phone how to do this, we need to have a conversation. So we need to, as someone creates an invoice, so I'm going to make an assumption for Angie, and if this is not accurate for Angie, you're just going to have to give me just go with it for now. Okay, so we're going to assume, so someone is working on an invoice or a requisition or PO, whatever, estimate, something. And then they disconnect. They get disconnected. It's 5 o'clock. I'm going home. Screw the boss. I'm out of here, right? And they don't complete it. We are going to assume that the person who would finish the requisition is the same person that started it. That's an important assumption. I think it's a safe assumption, but we have to make an assumption that it's like if I'm playing some game and I say forward progress, and then someone else across the internet is doing something, plays the game, and says forward progress, and I get their forward progress or they get mine. That's not good, right? So I'm going to assume the forward progress is limited to the person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this field right here, requested by. What I want to do is, as I create a new record, so I'm verbally walking through this. I'm going to say new record, and I'm going to click in here, and actually I'm not in here. I'm Clara. That's interesting, Clara. I'm going to hit Clara here. Okay, I'm Clara. Okay, and so. And while this is the contact here, I'm going to create a specific, I need a specific ID, a way of IDing this record. Like, what's your fingerprint? We're going to put, if you do your driver's license or you do background checks, things like that, you get a fingerprint. I need to put my fingerprint in that box. But what do we want to use as a fingerprint? What is the unique thing that we're going to identify them as when they come in? So in the case of Angie, they use Active Directory. So let's just talk about FileMaker Help real quick. We're going to pop into FileMaker Pro Help. We're going to look at the things that could be helpful here. So we have basically when someone logs in and they create the invoice, we want to capture their identification somehow, their fingerprint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and say get function and see if that comes back with get functions. In FileMaker, get functions. Here we go. So here are all the get functions that are in the world. Get functions are a command. You send the FileMaker and it brings something back. Like get function, what's the current time? Current time, current date, day of the week. It's currently Tuesday, at least where I'm at, right? Or Wednesday, correction. I'm on Wednesday. I'm not Tuesday. It's Wednesday. So, but there's all these things you can come back. Well, we can say get the user's name. Now, the user's name is, so what I want to do is I want to write these down, Margaret. If you want to write them down or post them somewhere or keep track of them for me.
Okay.
Username is one. I'm going to put it up here. Another one that you could use would be account name. So I asked Angie, I said, Angie, do your users use separate usernames and passwords? They should, but sometimes like the sales team will all share a username and password. It's bad. It's hard to track. It's impossible to see what individuals are doing because all you can see is what that group of people is doing. But you can get account name. So account name is ideally the individual, like Richard Carlton, this password, and Sarah Smith is this password, and Dick Smith is this password. That's their username and password. And Angie says they're using Active Directory. Well, if you use Active Directory, what ends up happening is that the account name will come back with an identification, typically their email address or something like this that will be unique to them. But you're going to want to verify this in your system. So it could be get account name. It could be get username. The rub with the username is if I go into FileMaker and I go in here, the username is this right here. It's going to default to whatever, or you could say I could promote myself to Tim Cook. I'm the CEO of Apple. Pretty awesome. Okay. And so then as I go around, if you say get function on this computer, it'll report that I'm Tim Cook. Right or wrong, it just is the way it works. So this is not the most secure thing. And if you're not using a system, if you have any of the people have values that change or they're not unique, right? We need something unique to the person that won't change. So I'm going to put this one back like that. The other one I want to point out, so we have this one I think is the one we want to go with. There's one other one that's really interesting, and I haven't talked about this with you folks in a very, very, very long time. It's called Get Persistent ID. The persistent ID is a way of identifying the piece of hardware that is talking to FileMaker. So I am Richard Carlton, and we've had conversation. I have like 12 computers. I got 3 or 4 offices. I have a broadcast set up in each one of them. So as we go around the offices, we can broadcast. So I have like 12 computers that are kind of mine, right? They're not high-end computers. They're Mac Minis, blah, blah, blah. So, but I have 12 of them. Each computer has a different persistent ID. If I have a laptop, it has a different persistent ID. If I have a phone, it has a different persistent ID. This is a UUID. It's a randomized string. It looks like this crap down here. See that? Now, when you install FileMaker, that persistent ID is created and glued onto that computer. If you completely uninstall FileMaker, I can't remember if you reformat the hard drive. I think if you reformat the hard drive and reinstall FileMaker, it zeroes out and recreates that persistent ID. So generally, that's fine. Keep in mind, that allows you to track the specific hardware. Some of you might need that. In the case of this, Angie didn't really give me any clarification, but I'll assume that some employees might have more than one computer. They might start the invoice or requisition on one, get bored, go home for the weekend, come back 3 days later, and log on from a different computer. So I'm going to make that assumption. It's a reasonable assumption, but I wanted to point this one out. Now, in starting point, something else goes on is that we sometimes can attach when someone logs in, we might attach their username and password to a staff record. So over here, I have a staff record. This is John Smith. All these people, there's 21 records. All these people could log in, right? And it could connect. Well, if it's Active Directory, you're not going to do it this way. But if you're doing your own username and password in FileMaker, once again, we're not really talking about that Active Directory too much. But if you go to Manage Security, if we run our own credentials, our own password system, all these people are going to be put in here. We're going to put in Hinda and Julianne and Prudence and Evan and Harmon and Sheena, and all these people would be in here. And so then you would be able to come back to their staff record because of their name and identify that. So we could use that. STA001 would be John Smith. That makes sense. If you're using Active Directory, their names aren't in here. Basically is a generic thing where we go here and we set up, that's Azure Active Directory or something else. You don't have their individual names in here. You're going to get that individualized item from the online authentication service, right? So some of you use that. Questions, Margaret, about that?
Well, okay, kind of a question. Like, you can get the persistent ID, but how do you read it? Do you have to like map the persistent ID to a specific account name in a script to get like an actual name back for it? Or
well, this is actually really simple. So let's assume we're gonna use so let's just say, okay, let's go into security. I want to go into security. I'm gonna have admin. I'm gonna create a new account. I'm gonna give it full access, and I'm gonna call it Richard Carlton. Okay. So Richard Carlton has full access. My password is something really hard to guess. And so now, so I can log in with that. Now, if I say, what is the account name? I'm logged in here, it'll be admin. If I come down here, it's Richard Carlton. If I add, let's see, Ken Tooley,
Ley.
All right, so Ken Tooley. And where you say that he's going to be, doesn't really matter. Let's say he's data entry only or something, right? So these are accounts that are active now. I'm going to say password is another super secret password that we all can guess. So if Ken logs in and we say get account name, it's going to say Ken Tooley. Mine would say Richard Carlton, otherwise say admin. Okay. So what I'm going to do over here is just to get this going, I'm going to go to invoices. I'm going to say, well, when we create a new record, I'm going to assume for the point of this conversation, you could call this something else, requested by. I could say like layout mode, it says requested by. I'm going to change that field from requested by to the, I'm going to call it the creator, right? You are the creator of all, right? Creator, right? Now we also have the creating name of the person who created the record. I'm defining this separately, okay? Creator, okay? So this is the person creator underscore owner, okay? How about that? So I'm going to change that. So now the creator owner is this text field. What I'm going to do is when the record is created, I'm going to have it do an auto enter value. Okay, create an auto enter value. So it's going to calculate a value one time, and I'm going to say get account name. Okay, so I'll say okay. Yeah, do not replace is fine. I hit okay. So what that does now, if I hit okay and it's going to save it, is that as I create a new record, like right now, if I create a new one right now, it's going to say admin probably. Yeah, there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out. I'm going to re-log in. I'm going to say this one, hold the Option key down. I'm going to say Richard Carlton, put my password in, say sign in, and I go to invoices, and then I create another new record. Now it says Richard Carlton. So assuming there aren't two Richard Carltons and people don't have giant nefarious sort of things going on, this is pretty secure, because right now you could come here and edit this, but you would lock this out so people can't edit this. That makes sense? So it's kind of locked in concrete. In fact, I could do that a little bit here. I could click on this, go to right panel, right pane. I can say do not allow entry in browse mode, but entry in find mode is fine. Okay, so browse mode. I can find on it, but I can't click on it in browse mode. So So what we do there's probably a script on the home screen that says something about, like if I press this button here, it's probably not going to do a go to layout. It'll probably run a script called go to invoice. So it's called script 0305 go to invoices. So what I'm going to do is we're going to verbally create a process to walk someone through this process. So they've logged in, they're going to invoices, and in our minds, so Juan calls me on the phone. Juan says, Richard, I was working on this last week, or I'm Angie. Hello. And Juan says, I was working on this last week, Angie. What do I do? And so, Angie, you have to walk him through this process. What does that look like? Well, Juan, you're going to go to invoices. Then you're going to enter find mode. And then you're going to put your name down here, right? And then you're going to hit the return key, okay? Or you could say, put your name down here and also put the status as I'm just going to preliminary, PREL. Remember, it's a wildcard search. You have the first part of it's fine. Hit return. There we go. So there's one preliminary record created by me. So that is and one goes, hey, thank you, Angie, right? And click, hangs up. So that's what we have to script, okay? So we go to script workspace. We're going to go over here to 0305, and it's in this navigation. So let me go back out of here. So I go navigation across the top of the screen in here. Go to invoice, yeah, right there. So what is in here right now? There's probably some comments in here. If the control, oh yeah, that's the thing we do with starting point in our databases is that if you're navigating and you hold down a modifier key like Shift, Command, Control, Alt, something, it will go where you want it to go, but it pops it into a new window. So you can have two windows at the same time if you're on Mac or Windows, if you're on Pro. If you're on Go, you really never see two windows. And if you're on WebDirect, is like Go, you will only see really one window. So this is a check to see if it should pop it into a new window or not. Okay, go to new window, script parameter. What did they do here? Get script parameter. Hang on a second. I don't know what this script is doing. There's no script parameter. Oh, it might be in here. No. So if it runs this, if the modifier key is down, then go to new window. Oh, okay. All this does is pop a new window. So we normally I would just say pop a new window over here, but
Yes.
setting it to 300 over here because there might be other stuff you want to do, like name the window and stuff like that. So yeah, okay,
Got it. Okay, so
normally for basic stuff, what I would have done is if I was over here, I would just put the new window in that spot, but they're thinking ahead of that. So I'd put the new window in here. So it runs this, then it comes down here and jumps to this layout, okay? So what we're going to do, though, is we're going to say, well, so Angie goes, well, it'd be better, Richard, if that I don't have to have Juan call me. This just happens automatically. And so what we do is we're going to, what we should do is, I'm going to put a comment right here. I'm trying to see how I want to do this, but I'm going to put a comment right here. Here's a comment. I'm going to say #, test to see if the user has orphaned any records. And probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to run this test at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn inner browse mode, pause off. That's kind of weird. All right, whatever. I'm going to put all this stuff down below here, okay? Okay, there's some sort of note here about resizing to fit with different version of FileMaker. I'm going to let that go for now, put that at the bottom. So what I want to do is the code that we had before, which would take us to our final destination, is here. Before I get that far, what I want to do is I want to put a new window open so I don't monkey with anything, okay? We're going to go ahead and go to the layout, which was, what layout were we using there? 800 data entry. So I go down to 800, hit OK. And so we're going to go there. It's going to pop it up. I'm just going to call this window test for orphan. Now, you should never see this because it's going to happen at warp 9. And then what we say, but now you're thinking about, well, Juan, can you go over there and do the search? Remember, I just told Juan, do a find mode, put your name in there, put preliminary in there. So we're going to follow the steps. So Juan, go to the layout. We did right here. Okay. Go to the layout. Okay. I'm going to put a return there, put a turn there. Lots of space in between. There's no penalty for putting space in here, okay? Enter find mode, Juan. Okay, I can do that, okay? Enter find mode, pause off. You don't want it to pause. Just trust me on that. We're going to say set field of the owner, creator, person, creator, CR. Oh, I'm in preferences. I need to be in invoices. Remember, because when we run this, we want to be we are in invoices already, so we have to be in that context. Then I go to the creator and I say, I want the creator owner. Now, what are we going to put in? We're going to put the get function, get account name. And then we're going to say perform find. Perform find. Okay. Now, set error capture is on, so it's going to suppress the error. Okay. So if I'm going to put an if statement, get last error equals, I think 0 in FileMaker is no error. I think it's kind of backwards in other programming languages, but that's what that is. If there are no errors, it should keep going forward. If it's not equal to, we say it's we want it to basically, what we want to do is we want it to jump ahead. Does that make sense? So I can say a lot of people do a search for found set. If I say the found count, get found count, there's another way of doing it, get found count. So the found count of records, if it's 0, right, there's another way of doing it. Sometimes you'll see me do an error capture for error 401, which is a fail of an error. Every time there's an error in FileMaker, there's a hidden ID number. If you know what the ID numbers are, you can test for them. 401 means a find didn't work at all. But this is also the same thing people use this. So if the found count 0, which means the find didn't work, then basically we don't want to do anything, right? We want it just to come out of there and jump down here, okay? What I can do then, but I can say else, and else means that there were records found. For the moment, I'm going to say show custom dialog, okay? And once again, all of you can figure better ways of doing this. You have, okay, and I'm going to specify there's a function, or I'll just say warning. How about that, warning? Okay, well, let's do warning here in quotes. And we're going to say what we want is down here. We will say, hey, you're missing, or you have orphaned records. And the question is, if we have 1, then we would show the 1. I guess, and this gets back to like a Angie policy thing, like at the corporate level, I don't know, and it doesn't really matter to me, but this is where you'd want to say like, by the way, so Juan calls you and Juan has him go through this, he does a find. If no records come up, hey Juan, you don't have any orphaned records, just start a new record. One record comes up. What are you going to tell Juan to do? Juan, go finish that right away. And he says, well, I'm not working on that project yet, I'm working on this other project, i.e., he's telling you no, he's not going to do that. So how do you handle that? You have blank, and I'll say get found count. You have that many number, and so it's a string of text. So this is the text I'm putting. Then in here's a function, orphaned invoices. Invoices. The management team doesn't like this. In order to keep your boss happy, please complete. And so you could forcibly drop them into that, or they could have a choice of whether they don't want to jump into it and work on it. Because remember, they hit the invoice button to go to invoices. The invoice button over here, and I'm pointing with my finger, I'm pointing right here, that invoice button doesn't say create an invoice or anything else. It just means they want to go somehow interact with invoices. That's what the button does on the home screen. It just takes.
So yeah, about to ask how you deal with them wanting to work on invoices they didn't necessarily start. So, or
they're not going to. We had that conversation 10 minutes ago.
Yes. Okay.
We made the determination that only the person who created the work order can complete it.
Complete them. Okay. Yes.
The problem is, this is a great example. So I talked to Angie, I made certain assumptions about the conversation, I hung up, here we are today. I didn't ask Angie what the scenario is for if they tell you to kiss your ass, right? Hey, I'm sorry, Juan, you need to work on this. Kiss my ass, right? And so you're like, okay, that's great, thanks. So what do you do with that, right? Or, well, my boss told me to finish his invoice, but you didn't log in as your boss. You can't do that. And so I don't even know how to tell Juan over the phone how to handle that from a business process standpoint. Since I can't even tell him over the phone what to do as Richard Carlton, not Angie, as Richard Carlton, I don't know what to tell Juan. I can't write the script. I literally can't write it because I don't know what Juan should do. That's why if you can explain to Juan, you know what's supposed to happen, you can write the script. I can't write it because I don't know. All I can tell Juan is I can say, hey, in order to keep your boss happy, complete, you can say, would you like to finish orphaned invoices? So you could ask that question. Okay, so here's the question. So there is the question. So we can provide them a question. Finish or start new. So that should make sense, right? Start new invoice. The reason I'm not being more explicit here is this dialogue thing in FileMaker right here, in Claire's FileMaker. The buttons don't allow you to put a lot of text on there. So if you start writing a book in here, and there was
It's not going to show up.
and then Noah was there, and then the earth flooded, and then everyone went around in circles, and then they drowned, right? Whatever. Write a book, you're right? You're writing the Old Testament, right? Something, whatever you're writing. It doesn't give it's going to show you the first 12 or 15 characters, then off with the head. So start new or finish. I'm assuming you would know finish. Maybe we could say invoice. I can try to see if that'll fit, or start new. So we'll say, okay, the default button, these are both commit data, and the default one, if they just hit the return key or enter key on their keyboard, it will go with finish. So we're going to say that right there. Then we're going to say we need another if statement. If, and this used to be a certification question, get, and then it's message choice. And the test question on the certification test, they'd say something like this. And people like select that and get it wrong. Doesn't work that way. If message choice is 1, as in button number 1, what's behind door number 1? Then they're going to finish. So we did a find, we're on the records. So then basically what you would probably do is you could leave the window open for them, right? You'd have to decide how you want to handle the window, but really they're already on the invoices that are orphaned. We're going to assume that how they handle 1 or 2 invoices is the same, okay? But we say if message choice equals 1, right? Then we're just going to I think we could just stop right here. So I'm going to say exit script. I think we're done, potentially. I could say else. Okay, so I could say else if and do message choice 2, but the only other option is button 2, right? Does that make sense? So we're going to assume that if they didn't hit message 1, they went with the create a new invoice, right? So what we do is we could say just close the window, because remember we're on this other one. We're going to go through with a script debug. You see what I'm saying? We're going to close this temporary orphan window, close window, and then we kind of, that's interesting. Did I not hit that close window? There we go, current window. So we close the window, and then we let the system finish because the original window was on the menu. So I think at this point we want to run through it. I'm going to save it. I'm going to get rid of this for the moment. I'm going to go to browse mode. And I'm going to say script debugger. Okay, we're going to watch this happen. So now we're going to simulate what happens to Juan or Richard. So we're going to press the button. Okay, it's going to run 305. It's going to turn these things on, browse mode, which we already were, which is kind of weird, but that's fine. We say enter, pop a new window and call it checking for orphans and go to the invoice date entry. So it pops that. Now, I didn't move it at all, but there are 2 windows here. See how they stack perfectly? But there are 2 here. This one's called test for orphan, okay? Now, it fired a script trigger in starting point. Hopefully that won't cause a problem. No, it didn't cause a problem. Now we're back to our script. We told Juan to enter find mode. Put your name down there in the requested by owner thing. There it is. And then, we forgot the preliminary. That was dumb. Okay, it's going to find all of mine. Okay, that's not good. I'm gonna tell it to you. I want to edit the script. I'm going to come over and edit the script, and the status has to be preliminary. I forgot that. Set. I'm not going to even run it because I know it's just going to fail. So we want to go into invoices. Now the script is still running over here, right? You see the script debugger is still running over here. So we're editing a script that's running right now. What will happen? So if I go to status, it's probably just called status, right? Status. I put status, specify.
Preliminary.
Preliminary. Is that spelled
correct? Is that how you spell it?
Is that good? I think that looks good. I'm going to go with it. Okay, I want to save it. It says, hey, Richard, you're a ding dong. You know the script is already running. If you save the script, FileMaker doesn't have a clue what to do because it's halfway through the script. So it's if you want to save it, I'm going to abort and halt here and save it. And I say yes. So I'm going to close that. The script debugger stopped. I orphaned this window here in this moment. It's in find mode. I'm just going to close it. Done. Try again. Start all over. 1, 2, 3. Go. Step, step down. Okay, it's going to jump the script trigger. It fires the script trigger. Okay, now we're in find mode. Put Richard. Bing. Put preliminary. Bing, which is right there, right? Now perform find. We should have at least one record. Bing. One record found. Okay. Now, if the record found set is 0, then go in here and then jump down below, but it didn't. We have a found set of 1. Bing. Else. Bing. Here. Bing. You have orphaned 1 invoices. You're such a bad person. The management team doesn't like this. Would you like to finish the orphan invoices? If I say finish, it should do message 1 and stop right here. That's exit application.
That's exit application, isn't it? This is going to close files.
This has caused so many professional developers have lost their minds over this because exit. We almost never run exit application, but we write exit script all the time. And we told Claris to just make that the top one that pops up, and Claris like, no, alphabetically, A comes before S because exit and exit, it's sorting it, right? And so S would be, yeah. Quit laughing, Margaret. You're making. I'm suffering with all of you. It's true. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to say finish. I'm going to tell it to stop and before we have a malfunction and exit myself out of here. I'm going to go to scripts. I'm going to go to the script 0305. I'm going to find the second bug that I created. So this is why we have the script debugger. So notice if I say exit and you just hit return, that's the one you get because I was going too fast. My fingers are going faster than my brain. Exit script. Now it'll work. Probably. Now, the other thing is that's going to stop right here. So keep in mind, it'll be an invoice window. It'll probably be, I think this might be okay. Let's just try this. I'm thinking about usability here, right? Because it's about to work. So I'm going to close that, go to home. Oh, anytime you have the debugger open, you just want to go through, hurry up and play through, hit play. Okay. And finish through. Now, invoices. All right. Step down, step. Pop new window. Then it runs a script trigger that we'd already set up that does some other stuff. It doesn't look too horrible. Enter find mode. Find for 1. Find preliminary. Perform find 1 record. If found count is 0, skip this crap and go to the bottom, right? Which then would have, we need a closed window in there. That's another minor bug because we have this. We still have a window that's open.
A floating window, yeah, okay.
Floating windows. So, but I'm going to say else, warning, finish invoice, step down, exit. And so then we would be on the partially completed one right here. And it says, that's called test for orphan, so we might rename that. So we could rename. So let's do a couple things here just to make this better. Let's go to scripts, back to scripts. I'm going to say, if we're going to exit the script, can we rename... Did I say rename? Ooh, rename file. Don't do that. How about window?
That's an option in the scripts.
Yeah, I don't know where that'll work. You'd have to look that up. All right, so I'm going to say window, adjust window. Can we adjust the window? Oh, no, that's not the one I want. I want something that allows me to take the window name and change it. Arrange all windows, close windows, freeze windows, size, refresh, scroll, select window, set window title. It's its own command right here. Okay, there we go. Set it to, rename the current window to fix. I'll just say fix. It's all caps. Fix. I see things blinking over here. We have questions, Margaret?
We have a comment from Angie, which I want to get to when we are done with this.
Yeah, if she changes how this works, I can't handle that right now with 4 minutes left. So we changed the window. And then the other thing you could do with the window, just so you know when it pops a new window up here, I'm going to go ahead and come down here to the position, and I'm going to say 100 from the top left, 100 from the top and top left. So it'll create the new window. It won't be right on top, so it'll be obvious that something happened. Okay, and then the other one is that if there's found count of 0, then the one thing we want to do is close that test orphan window. So close the window. Okay, great. So that does that. So this is if there are no orphans, close the test window, and then go down here and finish the normal opening, okay? And so there's really three possible outcomes of this script. So I'm going to go ahead and close this over here. I'm going to run this again with the script debugger right here. We're going to try it again. Click, 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 click. Down to the find mode here. Here we go. Find. Find the one. Found preliminary. Perform find. Found. Is there found set of 0? No, there's 1. Else. Put a warning in. Finish the end thing. So finish. Okay, now right here it's going to change the window title to fix orphan invoice. Exit script. Perfect. Right? Now, if we do it again, let's try it with invoices. And I'm going to say, I'm going to pop the, I can't pop the script debugger. It did it really fast, but I'm going to say start new. So start new is not necessarily the best idea. It should be just, I don't know, because remember the button on from the home screen means you want to go play with invoice. It doesn't mean start new. So if they're not finishing an invoice, they could just go to invoice. I don't know. You'd have to come up with what that looks like. What we want to say. If they don't want to finish invoice, and you want to give them that option, then over here you'd want to say something like, well, just continue to invoices or something, right? So I'll say start new. I'm not going to start a new one, I don't think. I come over here. Okay, so we need to check that script. It jumped. So we say if the message choice 2, it closes the current window. I must have more than one window open. What am I doing here? Let's try that again. So it's really not going to do message choice else. Yeah. Okay, let's try it again. Save it. Invoices. Start new. Okay. So start new is a bad thing. It should be go to invoices. I'm just going to do that. It's not great, but I'm not going to. We're in the minutia here of this. So that takes care of that scenario. So they don't have to. So then you could say, if I go Command J. So normally they would be on this. You'd have like this found set over here. Okay, so let's try that. Close that. Try it again. Save all. One more time. Home. Invoices. Do I want now? This test invoice, by the way, right here. Okay. Let's just say go to invoice. So I want to close this and just work on invoices in general. There we are. So it jumps us in invoices. It hasn't isolated ours or anything like that. So then if I say the other permutations say that we finished this status and it's now paid or something or whatever, done, completed. Then we run it again. Nothing happens. It doesn't interfere with us because we don't have any orphan invoices. Questions?
So Angie says everything you did today was great. Thank you very much. About her particular case, she just said that if they chose no to continue, that she would delete the orphaned parent and take him back to the home screen. So if you refuse to do your job.
Yeah, Angie, I kind of have a little bit of a spicy sense of humor, right? So, basically you're over here writing your script.
Angie also particularly loves the idea of taking the user back to the orphaned record on the next login.
They could do that too. Or you could say delete it, and then you could put the delete down here, but I hate deleting records. You gotta be so careful with that, right? Or you could
shuffle it off into a table to be deleted later, maybe?
Well, we're back to having a record in there. It's an orphaned record that now is not called orphan. It's called marked for death, right? and it's still in the system, and she's going to see marked for death, right? And so you could move it. We could go back to the script that Brooks looked at that I showed you folks last week, which was moving an estimate to an invoice. This would be moving this orphan record, which is marked for death, into purgatory, a table called purgatory. Right? And so you don't see it, but it's still there. By the way, the whole idea of not deleting a record and moving it to purgatory or something like that saved my Big Valley Aviation the other day, because I had a script that misbehaved and it was deleting, but it didn't delete it. It just kind of hit it. And I went back in there and undid my error. So I was like, because all this FAA stuff, those are legal records, right? Ask Boeing about that. The Boeing falsified the records on that door of that plane. That's why the Department of Justice was called. FAA says, don't, these are the rules, behave yourself. And if you break the rules around the edge or you're not malicious about it and you're just a dumb they might fine you or something or slap your wrist or say fix it ticket. But if you maliciously cook the books, they're going to call the Department of Justice and you're going to be in court with Donald Trump. Both of you be together. Right or wrong, I'm just saying, I'm not going to get political. I'm just saying, if I turn on the news, all I see is Boeing and Donald Trump. That's the only things I see.
Anyway, so yeah, I like Angie's decided that she's not up for dealing with anyone's nonsense, and if you refuse to complete your stuff, it gets yeeted.
I understood the process to a point so I could write a script at that point. But since I don't understand it beyond that, I couldn't tell Juan on the phone how to do it. Therefore, I can't script it. That's the whole point. Everything I'm doing is basic English. And some of you don't speak English, so it's basic Espanol or whatever it is, right? So it's plainly spoken, right? I understand the little commas and the little semicolons and stuff in here. If you have questions about that, let me know, okay? And when you do go to a different language or different JavaScript. All right, anything else?
I think we're good. I get the impression that we're good. People just saying this is why we don't work on development servers.
Yeah, I saw that. I get all that, but this customer is not going to pay. I built code back in July of last year. They refused to test it, and they started using it 2 months ago. So 8 months to test it and use it. They never tested. They went right to production with it. And I was in the building with them. So as they ran into issues, I knew that's the problem with it's going to be a separate process. I get all that. Then you better have a sidearm on a holster. And when your customer doesn't test, you're going to have to pull your gun and put it in their face. And I'm not promoting violence. How many of your customers will test their really? Now, they may not like the gun in their face, and you might go to jail for doing that. For until the cops get there, they're going to test, right? You can do anything you want on your last day. And I'm being flip about this, but think about how many people really test their. The guys at Big Valley, they got stuck in a car style window that popped up. They couldn't figure out, even though it was an X in the corner, and I told them there was an X in the corner to close it, they couldn't figure out how to get out. They pulled the plug out of the back of the PC of the wall to shut it off so they could reset the computer. So, I mean, their heart's in the right spot. The aircraft are meticulously maintained. They're excellent professional people. They just don't do computer. Well, now they love it. And they love calling me and Margaret and saying, hey, how does it work? It's a great relationship, but I can't force them to test. It's impossible. So how do you work around that? That's like another whole show. It'd be a show we should do and have, we were going to solicit, in fact, we'll do that. I want to solicit your ideas on how you manage customers who don't want to test. How do you do that? Okay.
Hide delete records in convenient places so they panic and call you.
All right, there we go. All right, guys, that's it for today. Guys and gals, Angie.
Cool. I think we're good. Have a good one, everybody. Y'all have it's a Wednesday. Okay. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.